Hey, this is Jared Krause, host of the Buying Online Business podcast. And in this episode, I'm speaking with Dave Jenyns from Systemology and System Hub. Now, this is part 2 of the episode on how to never let your website business turn into a job with Dave Jenyns. Now, if you haven't listened to part 1, go back and listen to part 1 first. Part 1 is very, very valuable in learning why we should have systems in our business and why we should not be buying ourselves a job, and how some people can let their business turn into a job and they actually don't have the best experience, which in turn doesn't give our clients the best results for our products and services as well. Now, in this episode, in part 2, it's a bit of a heavier episode and more dense and more value in this episode that I actually believe. Now, the reason being is because we talk about in this episode how you can get your employees to buy into creating systems and why it's actually better for them to use systems and why they deep down actually want systems. How can make their job actually easier and they thrive from systems. Now, we also talk about how you can take your systems with you in every business that you actually run or own. Now, once you learn how to create a system and optimize it and make it really, really good to get you a great result in your business for your clients and your employees, then you learn that for life. You don't unlearn that, and you can take that education, that system with you to every business that you do run. In this episode, we also talk about how good systems don't only de-risk your business, which helps you get a higher multiple, but it makes your business more valuable, getting a higher multiple where the new owner can see that they don't need to come in and have a whole bunch of owner hours put into the business just to run the business. So it's very, very valuable to have systems and implement them before you go away and sell your business to make a higher amount of money and get a higher sale value for your business without systems. Now, we also talk about in this episode how Dave was poached by the godfather of systems himself, Mr. Michael Gerber, who wrote the E-Myth, who got Dave to actually help him publish his book. And there's a great story in this episode on why Michael came away and started working with Dave. And it's something that we should all go away and use that system and that process that Michael Gerber uses to ensure that we can learn systems from people who are better at that type of work than us, and we can go away and create that system in our business once those contractors or employees actually leave. So it's such a valuable, such a dense episode. Go away, enjoy this episode, and I'll speak to you at the end of it. Today's episode is brought to you by Investors Club. Investors Club is a marketplace for serious buyers interested in proven businesses that aren't listed anywhere else. There is a free membership where you can get access to 14-day-old listings and can purchase due diligence reports for $47 each. Or if you become a paid member, you can get instant access to every single listing, unlimited due diligence reports, no fee escrow services, access to exclusive offers from Investor Club partners, and priority support. Now, sellers do sign a 2-month exclusivity agreement to only list with Investors Club. There are no purchase fees or commission, meaning the seller nor the buyer ever pay commission in any deal. And every due diligence report provides next level metrics to make sure due diligence is far less time consuming, making it quicker for you to seal the deal. Also, Investors Club have a great Q&A support available both for buyers and sellers. I'm a full member myself personally, and a lot of thought and effort has gone into this service. However, there are a limited amount of seats for this membership, so go and check them out at that URL, investors.club. That is investors.club. But I want to talk about the human touch, and also, like you said, you've got this, the business owner could create the systems, but I know there's more reasons why the business owner should not create these systems, and we should be having the staff do so. So what are those reasons? Because we want to make sure that these systems are used, right? We want to make sure they're done well and are productive systems as well. So what are some of those reasons?
So there's reasons for why the business owner might want to systemize. There's reasons why the team members might want to systemize. And to get buy-in, you really focus in on the benefits to the team member and why you'd want them to do it. one of them, obviously, people support what it is that they help to create. So that helps with a level of buy-in if they're involved in that process. And what you're actually doing with systems, when you're installing systems, you're looking to change the culture in your organization. You want team members to think in terms of systems and following process and doing things a certain way. The magic actually happens when your team goes, that's just how we do things here. Once you reach that level, then it becomes infinitely easier because things then get done consistently to a certain standard. So when you introduce the idea of systems to your team, again, you think about what is the benefit to them and why would they want to do it. We often talk about when people go away on holidays, you know what it's like. You go away for a week and you come back and you've got 6,000 emails in your inbox and your tasks are piling up and you're just behind. And then you spend the next month catching up for your 1 week holiday. And for good staff, it's the same for them as well. So helping them to understand by systemizing can keep their job moving so they can have a restful break and know when they come back, they can just pick things up where they left off. Or maybe you've got some team members that you can identify that they want to move up the ranks, and you can tell that they want to, in your organization, have a more senior position. We'll tell them by systemizing their role, the first step to move up is to make sure that someone can step in and take over their duties. And that is done through systemization. So there's a range of different ways to approach it to get that buy-in. Depending on the size of your team as well, the bigger you get, the harder it becomes to change this culture. So if you have just bought a business and there's only a few team members in there, maybe some contractors, and I talk about team members, some might be full-time, some might be part-time, some might be contractors, just people that you work with on a consistent basis. If you have a collection of those, then it's probably the right time to at least start thinking about those core systems.
Yeah. So would you say that if somebody bought a business that had 10 to 15 staff already and they say, I don't know how they would run without any systems, but for example, even if they owned a business and they started hiring, 10 to 15, got 10 to 15 people, it'd be quite hard for the business owner to go, hey, can you create a system around this? Or if the business owner tried to do it themselves, there's no way they're gonna follow that system because it's probably not going to be the system that they've already worked out themselves. Would you say it's harder to implement and create systems at that stage?
The bigger you get, obviously, the harder it gets because you've got more stakeholders and you need to everybody's in a unique situation, and depending on how long someone's worked with you, sometimes the resistance is, hey, I've always done it this way, why do I need to change? Or maybe they like the idea of a black box surrounding them as a team member and no one really knows what they're doing, and then that gives them a level of security and safety. So those things can exist. That said, though, right now, with everything that's going on in the world with COVID and the changing in work environments, people working from home, we're actually finding now is the best time to systemize because there is a reduction in the resistance to change. Everybody just goes, life is changing around me. I expect change. And it's so easy right now for business owners and leadership teams to introduce the idea of systems and just say, look, we need to do this because we need to operate efficiently. We need to make sure that you guys know how to work remotely and that you deliver to a certain standard. So the resistance is actually very low because team members are also more concerned about making sure that they've got safety and security in their job.
Yeah.
So now is actually a fantastic time.
They want to actually follow a system when people go work remotely. They want to make sure, because I know this for my mum who decided to start working from home, doing a bit of school teaching stuff. It's better for her to not freak out and go, all right, well, what do I need to do? How do I need to do it? But if they've got a simple flow, it just de-stresses that worker and builds more confidence in themselves to know that they're going to produce a great result for the team and for the business owner, right?
It's interesting to see the resistance sometimes that a business owner will come up with in their head that their team members won't follow or like process. I see this
Yeah.
all the time because the business owner, oftentimes, they're a big picture person, they're a visionary, they've seen a problem in the world, they've decided that they wanted to create a business to solve that problem. They kind of make it up as they go. When you first get started, you're not really systems driven. You're just kind of getting things done. That's what you have to do to get something off the ground. And because they train themselves in that type of behavior, they then think, oh, my staff are like me and they won't like systems and processes. But the truth of the matter is, A players and people who want to do well in a job oftentimes love systems and processes because it shows them how to win at the game. A system just outlines the expectations and how they can get a great result. You want the combination of good systems and great people. And I'm not a huge advocate for creating systems that so micro detailed that it removes some of the thought required or the creativity. I remember hearing, I think the owner of Netflix, I think his name is Reed Hastings, and he talked about this idea when they were looking to dummy proof their business, and they systemized the heck out of it so it was dummy proof. But then he said all we ended up doing was hiring dummies because only dummies wanted to work there.
Yeah.
Because he'd over engineered it. And sometimes you need to over engineer depending on the role. Maybe if you run a hamburger stand like McDonald's and it's flipping burgers and you've got 15-year-olds flipping the burgers, maybe you do need to over systemize it because you've got a high turnover and someone with very low skill and you've got to get them trained up. But depending on the business that you're in, you might be hiring qualified people who know how to do their job well. So you just need to have a system or a process that gives them the rules. They're like guide rails. It's like, here is the oval. I'm going to draw a line around the oval so I know that you don't play outside of the field.
And they're going to want to stay in their job for a while, as opposed to 15-year-olds. They're there for 2 years max before they go off to university or
Exactly. It's
college.
the
Yeah.
higher the turnover of the position or the lower the skill of the team member, then typically the more work that you put into the systems and have it more particular. But some systems, your bookkeeper who's been with you for 7 years and she knows how to reconcile an account, well, maybe it's just a 5-minute Loom video that shows how to reconcile it just in case she gets hit by a bus and someone needs to step in, but you don't need to have it so particular. So there's so many misconceptions for small business around business systems and a resistance because the business owner sometimes thinks, well, I'm not a systemized person or I don't resonate with systems. And that's actually what traps them in the business because they reach that conclusion with these false assumptions that they never really tested, and then it will cap the capacity of what they can grow. And it goes back to exactly what you said at the start, which is, the business owner, sometimes they'll buy the business looking for freedom, and then they get the exact opposite of freedom. They've just bought themselves a job because they're unable to make this thing work without them. But the truth of the matter is, if your business can't work without you, your business is broken.
Yeah. And it's no fun. And when your employees are so reliant on coming to you to ask you, what do I do here? Or how should I do this? It just really sucks all the energy out of you because you just can't work on your business at that time. And I noticed the change in myself as a solopreneur in one of my businesses to a point where I started hiring a team. And, this was a sales and marketing team. And I found the better my life was and the better the business ran was when I came to, and this is a good way for people to buy into systems and helping their staff create systems. The better the business was and the better my life was when I decided to every week go to the employees and say, how can I make your job better and easier and funner? And you just love this. And they could create the system themselves. And all it was is just me asking the questions for them to come up with the answers, and then they could implement. So it's a simple job for me if I take myself outside of like, I've got too much stuff going on. And I think that was the best way for me to allow them to buy into like, hey, if we create this awesome system for you, it's going to make your job funner, easier, and better.
And that whole premise, again, what we bake into systemology is this idea of how do you make the process of business systemization as simple as possible.
Mm,
You are busy. Your best team members are busy. If you go to them and you say, hey, I want you to create these systems and processes, they might go, well, I'm already busy as well. Your best team members will be.
mm,
So you need to think about how do you make it as easy as possible. One of the lessons that we talk about in the extract stage, which is stage number 3 in systemology, is that it's a 2-person job. You have the person with the knowledge, and then you have the person who does the documentation. So for your staff, making it easy and improving their job, you might get them to record a Loom video or record them on your iPhone doing the particular task. Maybe it's packaging up the product, or if
mm.
they're seeing a client or whatever it is, record that thing getting done and then get someone else to do the documentation, watch the video, pull out the bullet points. So then you've got a video and some bullet points. That speaks right to the idea of even making systems, the creation of them, easy and fun, because that's really the magic. You need to make it everybody's job as easy as possible, because systems and processes, at the best of times, there is some level of friction. It does feel like there's just work that needs to be done there, but you don't see the immediate impact. With systems, what makes it so challenging is the benefits are cumulative and they happen over time, and you don't feel the effects immediately. If you put a small system in place right now for the way that you invoice a client, you're only going to get a marginal improvement on what you're already doing. You have to invest the time to create the system. So there's a little bit of work there and you're not going to see it straight away. But add up 20 different key systems inside your business, all saving a little bit of time, all making you that little bit more efficient and freeing up a little bit of space and removing any sort of key person dependency. That's when you start to see some of the benefits. So that's why it's so hard for most people, because they have trouble getting past the here and now in the moment. But intellectually, you understand it. You're listening to this episode right now. You intellectually understand that you need systems and processes. What you need is the system for making it happen. So it's the systemology, it's the system for systemizing your business.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why you created the book, right? That's why you wrote this book. So I'm going to put a link in the show notes. I've read the manuscript and it's awesome. And this is where all my questions are coming from, because I'm like, how do I dig into this deeper for everybody to understand what I'm learning here? And you touched on one thing here that was quite important. And that is, like, a lot of people don't know what a system actually entails. Like, what does it look like? And a Loom video is what I use as well. And then, you could create a system in different software. Like, there's so many different softwares that you talk about. Just the simplest version of a system, what would it need? Like, is it just one video, like a bit of text, what the job looks like at the end of the day? What's just a simple version for somebody?
I find a lot of confusion around systems comes from the fact that there's probably 20 different names that you can give them. People call them SOPs, systems, process, how-to documents, standard operating procedures, workflows. There's a range of different terms, and a lot of them do have micro differences in their definition. But I just talk in terms of systems because I find it simpler. The definition of what I call a system is just a series of steps that, when followed, create a consistent outcome. So if the idea is to have a series of steps that are identified that create a consistent outcome, whatever the easiest form to capture that is. There are little tweaks that you can go with. I mean, I always like to start with a video first because I find the easiest way to capture it. But then as you work on a system, because systems are never a one and done process. You're changing the culture in the business. This is the way that we do things, and you're constantly looking to improve those systems. So it might start with a video, you might build onto it, you have some bullet points, you might start to add an overview that then explains, before someone even watches the video, what it is that system is about and the outcome that you're looking for. Over time, you might add the completion of a system. Here are a few checks. Here are 3 checks that you can look at to make sure that this particular system is completed to standard. Over time, you might add in email templates and additional PDFs, and it will depend on what it is. It'll depend on the turnover of staff and the skill level of the staff. The key is, though, it is, and I am biased, but I believe it to be true to my core, that the business systems are the most important asset in the business. It's what you will also, once you create this, you'll be able to take it to every online business that you ever work in, because the systems that work in one of your businesses will very likely, with minimal change, maybe you're 80%, 90% of the way there in every business that you work in. You're always going to need lead generation methods. You're always going to need a way for sales. You're going to need a way to deliver. You're going to have systems on the way that you pay your staff, or the way that you reconcile your books, or the way that you invoice, or systems around the way that you hire staff and onboard staff and manage staff. There are certain components of your business. If we go back all the way to the start of the interview, we talked about this idea of your business as a collection of departments and a handful of systems underneath each that really drive the bulk of the result for that department. Now, once you recognize that, and then you start to build this library of systems, that asset is what it becomes the driving engine of every business that you work in. Not only that, because it's the most valuable asset, it's actually something that you can resell many times over. If you've bought a business, you might be thinking about building it and maybe one day even selling it for a higher multiple. If you've systemized a business, that is one of the biggest ways to de-risk a business for a potential acquirer. Like, they want to know, if I'm going to buy a business, that I can continue to run it to the same standard, even though the old business owner is leaving. And systems helps with that. So the sooner that you get this and start working on it, the sooner you'll have that breakthrough.
Yeah, a great way to picture this is to say somebody's going to buy a business for $250,000, and there's two businesses for $250,000. There's one business that there is two staff to do some of the work, and the business owner does quite a lot of it, probably works 50 hours in the business a week or 40 hours. And then you got another business that's $250,000. The owner spends 2 hours, max 3 hours a week, and they've got, say, 10 staff running the business. Which business is more valuable? It's
no-brainer.
It's a no-brainer. Yeah. And I think that's really important I'm glad you mentioned that. I think it's really important for people to understand, is because by you wanting to sell your business, you automating it, and I've done it with AI, I've done it with staff, you automating it in a certain way makes the business a far better business to run, a far better asset, and you can sell it for a higher multiple. You can make more money.
I know a trades-based business, like this businessman who has bought and then sold 23 plumbing businesses. Each business, he goes through the same approach. He finds a failing business in the space, he buys it undervalued. Oftentimes, these businesses, if they're failing, they don't have systems and processes in place. He comes into that business, deploys his team and his systems to very quickly build it up over the course of sort of 12 to 24 months, and then flips it on the other side. His most recent sale, every sale, he's been leveling up each time for what his final exit price are. The latest one was tens of millions of dollars that he was selling, and he buys just an underperforming business, comes and installs this, and then when someone's looking to buy the business, if he goes, hey, I have this machine that I've built up the systems and the processes, I've got the right team members for you, I'm giving you a turnkey business that's infinitely more valuable. And I know, if you're in the space where you're buying and building websites, what a fantastic way to add instant value that you can oftentimes take to every business. Even when you sell your business, you still have those systems and processes. So you now go do it again. Like that's huge. That's like a license to print money.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is alone could be another podcast episode, but I think people just really need to understand this concept. So I'm going to harp on it a little bit longer, Dave, is that a lot of people will buy a website business and say, all right, cool, this business needs better content or better marketing, better sales, better whatever. And I'm going to monetize this or optimize this business this way to grow it. I think independently, if you go away and read Dave's book and you learn systems, you can use this as an independent optimization and monetization strategy without having to go and become a SEO pro, right? An SEO wizard or a digital marketing gun. You can hire those people in, or you can get those people in to do that. And you can take that from business to business, like you said. And I think this is just absolutely profound for people to understand, Dave. And I'm so glad that you mentioned it in that light.
The thing with the business owner, oftentimes when they get started, they get used to feeling like they have to solve all of the problems themselves. And you have to do that in the early days to get it off and running. But once you start to get a little bit of momentum, finding the appropriate experts to work with, finding out what they're doing and working with them to extract their systems and processes and installing it into your business, that can also be one of the quickest ways to grow, where you're leveraging off someone who's already solved the problem, who already has a systems-based solution. You're capturing what they're doing, and then you're ingesting it and making it part of the way that you do business. Every business, then you'll just keep leveling up. This is a snowballing effect. Systems really is about creating a database of solutions to recurring problems. So if you have a problem in your business and you create a systems-based solution to solve it over and over and over and over again, so you as the business owner don't feel trapped that you're solving the same thing. That's where a lot of business owners get stuck, is they feel like they're on the treadmill, or they feel like they're spinning plates because they're just solving the same problem over. But a business owner will actually light up. Their entrepreneurial juices will get going when you're able to work on it and solve problems at a different level. And that's the way I approach it. I think about my database of systems as just a database of solutions to business problems that I've come up against in the past, and whether I've solved it personally or I've worked with a consultant or someone who knew how to solve it. But then I still want to learn that system and process and make it part of my business. So a story around the way that I got to know Michael Gerber. So Michael Gerber, his wife happened to come across some work that I'd done.
Just before you do, people that don't know who Michael Gerber is, he wrote the E-Myth, and Dave actually helped him rewrite the revised version, the new version, right?
So yeah, the book, if you haven't read it, he's seen as like the godfather of business systems. This is the book that he wrote called The E-Myth. And the E-Myth, it's the entrepreneurial myth that is, because you think you can cut the hair, because you're a hairdresser, you think you can run a hairdressing business. But the truth of the matter is, doing the thing is very different from running a business that sells the thing. So he had this insight that, yes, most business owners, they can do the thing, decide they want to start the business, and then realize there's much more to it. So he'd written that book, and his wife had come across when I was launching my last book. So I have another book, Authority Content. She watched me launch that particular book, and she said, "Oh, I love what you did. I would love for you to do that for Michael Gerber." So the last book in his E-Myth series, which was called Beyond the E-Myth, she outreached to me and said, "Look, I would love for you to launch Michael's book just the way that you launch yours," which I ended up doing. And I worked closely with him. But the lesson I wanted to underscore here was, part of his business is he also has a series of books that he co-authors with people. There's E-Myth for accountants, E-Myth for lawyers, E-Myth for HVAC contractors, and E-Myth for, every different vertical. And when he launches a book with them, they didn't really have a system or an approach for the way that they launched books, because most of their books have gone through HarperCollins. That's their book publisher. So they never really did it. So when it came time to launch his last book, when they decided, well, we want to maintain the rights to this book, the book world's changing, and book publishers these days oftentimes don't add as much value as they used to. They decided we wanted to maintain the rights. So she said, well, I need someone to help with the launch. That was me. And then I find out only sort of once we get to the conclusion of it, they also wanted me to document the process that I went through for the book launch, so that they could take those ideas, ingest it, and then do that now as a system that they roll out for their future co-author book launches. And it gave me amazing insight to realize here is a guy that is considered the godfather of business systems, who doesn't really create systems himself. He understands it and the value. He finds where that knowledge is and knows how to successfully extract it, turn it into the system and process, and then build it into his business. And that's the master skill that you as the business owner need to develop, is this ability to collate these systems. Find the best people in the biz, extract it, organize it, optimize it, get it into your business, and then start to build this library that you take to every single business that you own. And that will be your competitive advantage.
Yeah, I love it. And it's just when somebody hires a contractor to come in and do SEO work or marketing or sales or whatever it is, you just adopt their system. They may leave, but you've created this system around what they did, and you can hire people in to do it. And you know that IP as you go on. And Michael's done that with you, and he does it with so many other people. I think it's just an absolutely excellent strategy that all website owners should utilize, because there's so much to learn when you're running a business, especially an online business, so many moving parts. To try and go away and study yourself and make all those mistakes is a silly way to go. I reckon adopt it from somebody else for sure. And Dave, we're running a little bit low on time here, but I want to make sure I squeeze in some more of this book because it's absolutely excellent. Where can people, go away and grab this book? Because I've gone through it. There's a great story at the start, how you got introduced to Michael, that I think everybody should be reading about as well. But where can we go away and buy this thing?
Yeah, so the book comes out on Amazon on August 18th, 2020. So depending on when you're listening to this, you might be able to go to Amazon or head to systemology.com/book. And then on that page, there'll be the links through. You'll also be able to get some preview chapters, listen to some interviews, get some extra tools and those sorts of things. There's also a link to our podcast where I interview people and get them to share their system or process. Once I learned that trick from Michael, I ended up starting up a podcast.
Amazing.
Where I interview experts, have them share a system or a process, and then I get my team to do the documentation. So it's
wow.
Yeah, that's a business processes simplified, but it's all, you can get to it from the systemology.com/book.
Guys, I'll put the link in the show notes to get the book. Make sure you check out that podcast and learn some systems. That's absolutely excellent, Dave. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thanks for having us.